Welcome to Not Just Ads, the show where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the creator economy for B2B. Hello and welcome today to Not Just Ads, the creator economy for B2B. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Elizabeth Irvine. Elizabeth is Chief Global Growth Officer at Siteimprove, where she oversees the global marketing strategy for Siteimprove. Elizabeth has a tenured experience in MarTech, where she's previously at MarketMuse and where she earlier started her career. She's a wealth of experience in the B2B space, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the conversation with her today. Elizabeth, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Man, so I started at TechTarget in 2007, and my job at that time was only to write promotional copy for our customers' white papers. So all day I was writing email copy for very sometimes technical, uh, hard to consume white papers that are meant to guide senior IT leaders with really tough challenges that they're facing in their companies. So how do you make something that is very complex, exciting an email to try to get someone to download it? So that's what I did all day, was just write email. And we were sending a single email to hundreds of thousands of people at that time in 2007. So that feels like a long time ago. People aren't really doing it that way anymore.
In terms of AI and standing out and kind of showing value to the user and recipient of who's reading the mail.
You know, I'm actually glad that AI did not exist for that purpose, because while I may have struggled sometimes with some of the content being just out of college and not knowing what the heck data storage was or various really important enterprise and business initiatives, I needed to get in the mind of my reader and understand their problems and what keeps them up at night. And in order to make it an interesting enough email that they wouldn't just delete it when it came through. Being able to put your customer first, your audience first, is something that no matter what happens with tech and AI, that's foundational. That's always something that should be at the heart of everything that you put out. And if I had AI back then to just kind of write this email and I would proofread it, it would lose something, and I would lose that ability to connect with someone that I may never meet, but give them something that's of value and will help them with their job. So I think it's actually a very foundational thing that I worry a little bit of people coming out of school now, that it's so easy to get this stuff out there that we somehow are getting further and further away from our customers when we should be getting closer.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you see, like, even now in your role, and we get into that in a moment, but just with AI and automation and everything like that, do you think that there's going to be kind of a watershed moment in terms of actually more companies will go back to the basics of like spending time with customers, really getting feedback loops directly from customers, and being able to get value quicker to the end user, rather than just kind of automating things and looking like we're efficient, but then actually not having an effective feedback loop with the customer? How do you see that playing out?
I think that we'll go through that cycle. I can see that happening already, where we talk about AI slop and a content tsunami, and we're trying to become more efficient to hit our goals faster or to save time here and there. And this comes up a lot in the marketing conversations that I have with other industry leaders on how do we still drive that efficiency but not lose sight of what really matters. I think that being able to bring those practices in but not lose sight of those customers, like I said, is going to be pretty critical.
Yeah, I think so. I'd love to talk to you a little bit then about MarketMuse and Siteimprove. I know that Siteimprove acquired MarketMuse a number of years ago, but maybe for users for listeners that are unaware of MarketMuse and Siteimprove, maybe you could just share a little bit about the company, the space that you're in, and the markets that you're in, and so on, the customers you serve.
It's so funny what we talked about before because MarketMuse is an AI content strategy platform. So we help people figure out what they should be writing with AI, but actually it really helps you figure out what you should be writing. There are generative AI elements within the platform to help you create that, but we help you understand where you're performing and where there's a need and bridging that gap so that you're not creating content that won't be meaningful to your audience and won't be found in search. Siteimprove is an accessibility and content intelligence platform, and bringing in MarketMuse into that equation means that we're able to help our customers create a truly accessible and high performing experience for their customers that is performing in search and for those who are visiting the sites.
Okay, yeah. So it's a very exciting space to be in as well, I guess now because people are still trying to really figure out the thing of before from SEO. Now in terms of like how you can be relevant with
Mhm.
LLMs and so on. For companies and leaders that are listening to the show, what do you think they should be looking at if they're, they know it's important, they know that the audience is shifting there, but what do you think from a marketer's point of view? What should you be thinking about in terms of that shift and how MarketMuse, obviously Siteimprove now, how you kind of sit being able to help them with that?
It actually ties back to what we were talking about before about not forgetting the basics and the foundation. I feel like every few weeks there's a new strategy that's going to help you perform in AEO. Earlier this year and the end of last year, it was Reddit. I've heard YouTube and LinkedIn and all of these things. If you go really hard on this, it'll improve your likelihood of showing up more in AI search. And I think that as marketers, we need to be careful about not latching on too quickly to some of these hot takes and distract from, because those hot takes may be true in the moment, but and we've learned this on the SEO front. For years, people would try to kind of hack that and figure out how to game the system, but then the technology catches up and you have to almost start over back to the beginning. And if we just follow the foundation. What we know works. Google says what you need to do in order to rank, and it's creating really great high quality content that answers an intent. And AI search is different, but it does follow a similar fundamental strategy that matches that. There's other inputs, of course, but they want to provide a high quality answer for people who are asking questions. And so it really goes back to not skipping steps and know what good looks like. And we won't know what good looks like with a hot take. We're just experimenting. And experimenting is really fun. And we can try putting money here and there and see what kind of uptick we have. But really sticking with what we know works, what good looks like, and then slowly tinkering with some of those fun hot takes that
Yeah.
can be fun and we may see that result, but not forgetting the foundation.
Yeah. Do, do you think then when you're looking at foundations then of it, is it basically looking at like, let's say, I don't know, you have customer in an industrial sector, a very B2B kind of company, let's say
Hmm.
it's like logistics or industrial, really looking at like, okay, what's important to this buyer persona, and we have 5 or 6 buyer personas in the committee. Is it kind of building like the flywheel of content and kind of coming up with like what are the possible questions, what are the pain points, what are the challenges, and
Yeah.
then seeing, okay, how can we build value around that? And then once you have all that foundational piece and you can kind of cross reference that that's actually the pain points and it's useful and you've validated that
Mhm.
with your customers, then you kind of go and look at, okay, these are the distribution channels. How can that be used then so that they would appear? Is that something, or would I be missing something there?
That's definitely it. And it ties back to the customer too, being really tight with the customer and understanding what they're focused on and what would serve them. But even more foundationally, the site structure. And if AI is reading the site in a different way than someone is experiencing the site. So accessibility and SEO are actually very tightly aligned there because if you create an accessible site for a screen reader, that means AI is going to read it really well. So how your site is structured, making sure that you have humans publishing content. So authorship is something that people don't always necessarily think about, but it's really meaningful from that credibility from a search perspective. There's in mobile speed. Google is mobile first. If your mobile speed is is poor. AI won't recommend you either. So there's a lot of, and that doesn't necessarily have much to do with channels. It's just the performance of your site. So you could spend a lot of money in various channels, but it's not going to necessarily change how you're showing up in search if the bones of your site aren't where they should be.
Yeah. So get the basics right first, I guess,
Yeah.
and then build from there. And then with Siteimprove, then you like you mentioned about like the mechanics of like mobile and making sure that the navigation is in place and
Mhm.
stuff. Do you give users then like an idea of like, okay, how to get from say good to great in that aspect?
Yeah, yes, not to plug our platform too much, but we do score in a lot of different ways across the site. We have SEO scores and accessibility scores, quality assurance, and have really specific issues that should be fixed to improve those. There's a bit of fun gamification too. Like you get kind of addicted to fixing these things, so the color moves to green instead of yellow or red. But there are things that will fundamentally improve the performance and experience of the site, and they often get overlooked because we're focused. We have a really aggressive pipeline goal, or you're looking to have you have a big launch and you want to make sure that everybody sees it. And so sometimes these core foundational things kind of get put on the back burner, but really they should be part of the heartbeat of what a marketing team maintains or a web team maintains, so that when you have those big moments and are chasing that pipeline, you don't have the risk from an underperforming website.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'd love to talk to you a little bit then from a marketing standpoint in Siteimprove, and you've worked across a number of roles as well in B2B and marketing. Like, what do you see as kind of the big changes since, say, you began your career in 2007? We touched on copywriting and how, that's a key skill that's probably more valid now, even so, than to stand out and staying close to the customer as well and understanding their market. But I'd love to dive a little bit deeper in terms of how you see it from even a demand generation. We talk a lot about the big thing now is brand and demand, and there's some research out with LinkedIn and Ehrenberg Bass about 5% of your audience are only in market, the other 95% are out. I don't know how active it is across different verticals and so on, but I'd love to get your take in terms of when you're looking at your growth goals as a business and how you look at that then from whether it's a channel perspective or from a planning perspective as well, of like what do you find effective, and where do you see challenges as well in the months and years ahead.
It's funny thinking back to 2007 when we would send an email to everybody. And now we have ways of creating really targeted messages to a very specific subset of people. And I think that being able to focus on it kind of ties back to your customers too, being able to really focus on those segments when you're doing, whether it's broad awareness or when someone's coming to your site. I did this actually the other day we have a chat bot where you can put offers up on the site. I had a very specific segment and only 83 people have seen it so far, which in the grand scheme, that doesn't sound like it's very high, but it's converted 3
Yeah.
people.
Wow.
So if I were able to do that for every segment which I plan to do, for every segment that we're focused on, to have a really compelling offer that speaks to them, the volume doesn't necessarily matter as much as reaching them and having that conversion. And so I think that's a big shift that we've seen as marketers in the industry. I'm interested to see how that happens down the line, especially with programmatic and technology and new either social networks that come about or change how they're advertising. Meta just changed how they are able to enable B2B marketers to target. There's always going to be ways of getting closer and closer and closer to your buying group. And that's what I try to think about every day. Avoid the spray and pray and avoid the random acts of marketing. How do we just make sure that the experience that we're creating from the very first time they meet us and see our brand and interact with us to when hopefully they become a customer? How can I improve that experience, build credibility, and build excitement for them coming in?
Yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying there as well. Like, I think now as platforms evolve, like you mentioned there about Meta and their B2B piece, is it based on kind of like linked with companies where people work, or what's the segmentation that they're positioning on it?
I think it's around that. I need to dig into it a little bit more. We don't do as much on Meta. We've experimented a little bit. And it's one of those things going back actually to what we were talking about. We did one experiment because we're B2B, we focus mostly on LinkedIn, but everybody everybody
Yeah,
spends on LinkedIn. It's expensive.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
where else can we go? Where are people? How can we get in front of them? And so we're starting to scratch that a little bit. I think that's something too with marketing. At what point is an experiment, like, do you change the experiment? Is it a win or a fail, or is it just adjusting? And I don't mind those small segments having, 100 people in a week looking at this banner. We actually can learn a lot from that versus a general message to a general audience. We're not going to really learn enough
Yeah.
what moves the mark there.
It makes a lot of sense as well because I think LinkedIn specifically has evolved as a platform. Like obviously they have the unique position of that first party data of professional
Hmm.
background, which is huge value. But then also I think now you can see for creators and stuff that post on the platform, they probably didn't get as much reach as they used to. But then a lot of people would argue actually I'm getting a lot less reach, but I'm actually reaching the right people. So the
Mhm.
algorithm is kind of improving in terms of the content that it shows to people. But if you look at about the unique visitors, it doesn't really, or sorry, yeah, the unique members reached. It's not a huge amount, but I think that kind of goes back to the point as well, isn't it? It's like if your reach is really high, that's like the initial thing of like getting people into a platform and saying, look, you have all this reach, but if there's no value coming in a couple of weeks or months down the line, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a vanity metric for for want of a better word.
Absolutely. And that happened, that's been one of the painful parts of SEO and organic search for companies the last couple of years. Their traffic has declined, but those who are sticking with it and not abandoning organic search are actually seeing more value from the people visiting their site. They're seeing better conversion rates. So
Yeah,
the people who are the people who are visiting are more valuable to them, and that's going to happen with other channels too. And I've seen data on LinkedIn too, where yeah, the reach is down, but if the right people are consuming, then
exactly.
great.
It's more value. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's much more effective then for sure. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit around thought leadership then as well. So, that's another big trend. You're probably on LinkedIn, and I'm sure that some of your C-suite and your team are posting there and stuff. How are you finding that effective in terms of actually driving business outcomes as well?
It's hard to measure thought leadership. I see thought leadership as a way to connect and humanize a brand, especially when it's coming from the C-suite or really anybody. I think thought leadership is often pegged for a certain type of person in a company. Anybody who's talking regularly to their audience and trying to add value to them is one form of thought leadership. I think another can be thinking ahead and putting a different perspective out there for or different angle for what they see coming. Mark Benioff did this with sales. He was talking about software before it
Yeah,
even. So thinking ahead and kind of paving that way for what they imagine will come. It's so hard to track back to pipeline, but there are some software that can help you get slightly there. Conversations that you have with your customers too, and asking where they heard you. You
yeah,
can a little bit of that, but you can see this swell that starts to happen when you start doing more thought leadership. And this is the challenge with brand and awareness in general, is being able to, anytime you mention attribution to a marketer, you're gonna get like a shift in their body language and a grimace because it's so hard. But you can feel the swell of impressions. We're talking about volume. It's, um, it's hard to measure, but it I don't know how to describe it. You can tell more people are coming to the site. The conversations with sales adjust a little bit because they're starting to see the brand in more credible places.
yeah.
Um, so I think that strategy is really important, especially now, especially for AI search, because when you're posting and publishing in other credible publications in Forbes and Inc.com, that is critical for your brand credibility and value, and not just posting in one place. I think that diversifying where you're showing up is important as well, for that aspect. I think that I don't know how much data there is behind that from an AI search perspective, but I've been seeing that more and more, that PR is going to be a really important lever for marketers in the coming years.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. That like even getting cited by like third parties, or if you the other thing what people are talking about now and is around the creator piece of like creators working with companies, and when they're working with them and
Hmm.
they're that it's not like that it's an obvious buy this product kind of thing. It's more like, okay, I found this useful and so on. But it is obviously a partnership that kind of increases the chances then for AOR as well, for to be cited by like a third party as a brand. I don't know if you've come across that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what can make that leadership meaningful is the point of view. So any brand can talk about why you need something, and why this tech will help you with your goals. But having that unique point of view and that connection to the customer is what's going to make some of that thought leadership more impactful.
Have you tested with the thought leader ads on LinkedIn, like boosting organic posts and then kind of
We
trying to
have
apply that to how have the results been?
good. We've done a lot of that recently, and the cost per click is so low. It's so
Yeah.
low. And we're able to get in front of a lot more people. And it's a mix of people from the company. It's not always just our C-suite. And it's usually the storytelling that does the best when we're not talking about, when it doesn't feel like it's abstracted from a white paper or a guide. It's
Yeah.
storytelling. Those do really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I've seen people do as well is like kind of retarget the audience then with, I don't know if
Hmm.
you've tested this, but like with a
Yeah.
message ad or even to like a newsletter or something like that, and it works really well. It's interesting because I think LinkedIn struggled a lot with having the brand piece of like they were always taught like we it's an expensive channel, so people just focus on what they can prove because it's expensive with lead gen and stuff. And now, in the last like maybe 18 months, when they changed the rule whereby you're able to promote the post, so this kind of
Hmm.
give rise to the B2B creators, but
Yeah.
also then companies being able to work with like even say creators, but also staff as well, how their posts and stuff can be promoted and then tied to other things. It's yeah, it's an interesting. I don't think traditionally people would have said, "Oh, this is going to be LinkedIn's brand play," but that's kind of what's materialized. So yeah, it seems to be working really well for a lot of B2B brands.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to get your thoughts then on like another trend that we see as well is like kind of the GTM engineering, GTM go to market. Well, GTM is go to market. I sound like a bit of an idiot,
No.
but no. But what I'd love to get your insight is the role of GTM and GTM engineering. We're seeing like lots of tools like Clay, a number of other ones in this space, but there is a role of how this is kind of coming up, and it's kind of like the marketing operations and how that sits then within the marketing org. From your perspective, do you see like it being effective, or do you still think that there's still a little bit of noise around the role, that it's still not really completely defined in terms of how that sits within an organization?
Yeah, I think that marketing operations and that orchestration is critical now. And it's something that can be an accelerator and a growth lever if you're able to get your data to talk to one another really well. We have to be careful with things like LinkedIn. We've been talking about LinkedIn a bit and about not going to LinkedIn jail, but being able to have all of the data that your that touches customers. So everything in one place, down to and your audience, down to help center, to social, to your site, your product. If you have a trial, it's very common that all of this data is living in different teams, different people are managing it. It's not talking to one another. Even if new users are added to your product, are they created in your CRM? It's scary how often they're probably not. And that is your expansion play. You don't necessarily have to do a whole bunch of ads to that company. You just need to pay attention to what they're doing. that data is often siloed. And ops and go-to-market orchestration, if you're able to get all of those talking to one another, you'll see these patterns, you'll see the opportunities, and you'll be able to shorten the sales cycle, shorten the expansion. But it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. The platforms don't always talk to one another. And you have to figure out a way to get them to. How can you hook them up? But that's one of our growth plays this year is getting all of the data into one place so that we can really understand what's going on with our audience and our customers.
Yeah. When you do that, what kind of tool would you do that from like the CRM? Then the goal would be to have everything in the CRM, and then basically, or would it be like a data clean room, or what do you see as kind of most effective at the moment?
There's a few, and honestly, right now we have a lot of it in one place. There's some things that we even just discovered, like, oh, this still is over here. We need to get this over here and talking to this. We try to have one source of truth. The CRM is a really good one. But again, not everything talks well. This is a plea for MarTech to make it easier for things to talk to one another. But Zapier and Make and Data are really good ways of bridging that gap. But sometimes the larger organization that you're in, it's the harder it gets to be able to make those connections. But yeah, they're critical, and it should be a collaboration between marketing ops and rev ops and getting all the right people in the room because magic happens.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? It seems easy these things, doesn't it, when you talk about it? But like when the reality comes to play, then there's always some other challenges and stuff like that. But it's yeah, once you can get everyone together and just get it an alignment on the objective and so on, things move faster.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear from your point of view then any other trends that you see in the B2B space over the next say 6 to 12 months.
It's a really good question. I think that it ties back a little bit to what we were talking about with customers. I see it being easier to go to market with a new website or spin out various offerings really quickly. It's really amazing and scary what AI is able to do for us. I have a feeling that there's going to be more of a shift in how brands are going to market. So when you look at certain tech companies, they want you to know that they use AI. They want you to know that they're an AI company. And so their brand shifts to emulate that. And I don't know. I have a feeling there's going to be a shift in how brand is factored in overall to how companies are going to market. It's been a hard thing for marketers to attribute and show value to the larger organization at times if they don't have that brand that if it's not embedded in the organization, it's often something that marketers have to fight for.
Yeah.
But I think brand in the next couple of years is going to become really critical in order to break through the AI volume and the content volume. You have to stand out. And I think brand is the way to do that because that's the first thing that everybody sees. So I think that that's going to be a bit of a reckoning.
Yeah. And when you say brand, then would you say also like personal brand in terms of like the founder led growth or like C suite, even individuals within a division and so on, as well as that the company brand?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The brands that leverage their employees and their knowledge and the subject matter experts in their company break through it a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely a trend of how people even relate. Like you mentioned about the storytelling that you're doing on the thought leadership piece, I think people would relate to that a lot quicker than just say a logo of a brand that they may or may not know. Makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense.
with AI is helping us increase efficiency and move faster, but it's also making us want to connect with humans more.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's for sure. For anyone that wants to find out more about Siteimprove and about content that you share, where are you most active?
Most active on LinkedIn, and Siteimprove's pretty active on LinkedIn. A lot of our leadership as well. You can also find us on X, but LinkedIn is really the main.
Perfect, perfect. And I saw Siteimprove, you guys are hiring as well. No, I saw recently.
Yes,
You're growing quite a
yes,
lot.
I'm hiring desperately.
Great, great. Okay. Well,
But we're
we we will put the link on the show notes as well. Yeah, Elizabeth, it was great talking with you. Thanks very much for joining us on the show.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. It was a
Thanks
pleasure.
a lot.